For the day.
Mr. Speaker, point of personal privilege.
Gentleman has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, I want to talk a little bit today about an issue that I think both sides of the aisle agree is, I would say, the number one issue, and that's K-12. I had the privilege of co-chairing along with former Secretary of Education Jim Dyke the Governor's Education Reforms Summit. And one of the things we did that I loved is we had a teacher work group that came out of that summit that advised us on this entire agenda. So you're going to see several bills today that start to roll through. One is Teach for America, and of course the Education Fairness Act, which reforms continuing contract. And of course I think that's a much better version this year, and I think teachers help make that a better version. I want to focus my talk today, though, on teachers because I had the privilege of doing that for 30 years, and now that I'm old and retired, I feel like maybe I can speak out on that a little bit more, especially when it comes maybe to the compensation piece of teaching. I would say that teaching means more than anything. It means more than class size, fancy curriculum, new computers, etc. A good teacher in a classroom will transform someone's life. And I know if I ask each and every one of you, you can name the one teacher who probably not only inspired you, it's probably why you're in the field that you're in. And one of the things I love to do is save all the thank you notes you get as a teacher. And I have to say, one of the best ones I got actually came from a young man who ended up being a very high official in the Democratic Party. So I got to teach him on both sides of the aisle. As a government teacher, that's your thrill, is for them to go on and, of course, be in government because it's the most unique, best system in the world. And the reason I say that today is we really have an opportunity, I think, to do two or three things for teachers. Number one, the governor has a teacher cabinet that sort of formalizes this teacher work group where you can get teachers together to advise him on what should go on in the classroom because who knows better. And I can name a lot of other things that are actually in that package, but let's be blunt. For most teachers, one of the best things you could do for them right now is give them a pay raise. Because most teachers, if you talk to them, they work two jobs. When I first started teaching, and for many years I waited tables at a local dinner theater. And almost every teacher can tell you of the second job they have. And the tough thing about that, obviously, you'd much rather be home doing your lesson plans and calling your parents, etc. And so the governor is proposing a 2% across-the-board pay raise, which I think is very, very important. That's about $58 million, and $58 million in this budget is pretty hard to come by. So I really want to applaud the governor for that. He's also embarking on a new strategic compensation model. You're going to see that bill come up in the next few days. And I'm just intrigued with this concept. When you generally say the word merit pay, most teachers recoil. But they don't mind being judged on student outcomes. They don't like being judged on a static SOL test. And one of the reasons for that, I'll give you a quick explanation, is that you might have, let's say Susie in your classroom who's a great young student, but, really has to try, might only test out at the 30th percentile. And you can move her to the 45th percentile. You make great progress. She might not pass the SOL test. Johnny, who's naturally gifted, is about 90%, doesn't work real hard, falls down to about 80%, but still passes the SOL test. So one teacher gets credit. One teacher, of course, not only gets no credit, but actually is almost a stigma to that. So Salem, Virginia has come up with this neat model that measures student growth. And teachers helped develop it. They've really bought into it. So the strategic compensation model really sort of goes a long ways to promoting that. There's other criteria your locality can develop in their own model. I'll give you an example. And we all know what makes a good teacher. Ones that mentor, ones that call parents, one that volunteer to go in hard to staff school. So this new model has about $15 million attached to it. And let me say this finally. Most of you understand, because you've come to us with your concerns, their teacher pay raise is an incentive pay raise. We do not directly give a 2% pay raise. It requires a local match. I know some of you have heard from your localities that could be tough this year. So there are two things that we're really trying to emphasize. One is that please don't forget in the governor's budget, there's about $45 million out there for local aid reversion, where the localities were having to write us checks, they'll get that back now. And a new concept we're looking at under the leadership of our chairman, Delegate Putney, is how can we make this pay raise a little bit more attractive where localities will be more apt to do it. And one of the things we're looking at, I think you'll see in the final version, is spreading that pay raise to support personnel. Because if you'll ask a lot of your localities, they will tell you their formal or their operational policy is we do that anyway. And so currently the way it's structured is they got to come up with 100% of the money for the support personnel, and they are your great people that are your secretaries, your bus drivers, your janitors, et cetera. So we're looking at that. We'd love to have your comments, but we think that's probably the direction to go. My goal is not a dime of that $58 million falls to the bottom line. I want it to go into teachers' pockets. So, Mr. Speaker, that's sort of a state of the union, a long state of the union on teaching, but I look forward to working with the other side of the aisle, and hopefully we'll have one of the best K-12 packages we've had in a long time.
Thank you, gentlemen.